All right, good morning again. Welcome to COVID edition deploying a well. I already recorded a video, but in case you didn't watch that one, I have with me, or have built, I'm at home in my backyard, and I have built a well. It's about 17 feet out of 1.5 inch PVC pipe. The bottom is blocked, so it just holds water, but it makes a good little sample well so we can test some different things out. So today we're going to deploy one of these Seametric's CT2X, and this records both salinity, conductivity, depth to water, and temperature. And so this, if you unscrew here, and you're going to need a pipe wrench the first time you do that, and some good channel locks. The batteries are in here, and then you can unscrew this part and this part if you want to. This is where one of the sensors is, and so it's regularly a good idea, and in here as well you can see the holes. It's regularly a good idea to pull these things out, make sure there's not mud sitting on them, and that and clean them off if you need to with some fresh water. Most of the time when we deploy these, we don't want them sitting on the bottom. We want them to sit 5 to 10 feet above the bottom, but significantly below where the water generally hovers. We don't want the water level dropping below where the sensor is. For the sake of this test, because it's PVC and it's 100% clean, there's no sand or mud or anything in here, I just let it sit on the bottom. So we'll make another video about the appropriate way to attach this to one of our regular wells at a future point. So deploying is pretty simple. You just stick the data logger down into the well. Okay. So normally if this was out in the field, we would put some sort of like a little Chinese finger trap thing on here, which would have a ring or something that we would have that would hold it at the top of the well so it can't fall down any further. But for now, I'm just letting it sit on the bottom. And then we have the end that we connect to for data. So the very first thing we're going to need to really do before we do anything else is we need to get a depth to water, because we're going to use that when we calibrate this process. So we're going to grab our solenoid, get a depth to water. Don't go going up crazy. All right. All right. So as always, moisture in the well or on anything that you touch as you go down into the well can cause to give you an earlier false reading. You can also listen to the different pitches of the beep to find out when it's really hitting versus when it's just a little wet. They do make a different noise. What are we at right here? That does not seem right. Ripples into the different beep, and I came up with a 3.82, which is consistent with what I did 2 minutes ago for a different video without all the beeping. So first grab a depth to water, pull up your solenoid. Alright, so now the physical data logger is deployed. We're going to write down in our field book most likely, but if you're deploying something, you're going to want to write the date and time. So today is 4/28/2020. It is 8:45 a.m. Deploy logger. If there's a serial number on the cable or the data logger, that would be a good thing to write down. We might be able to get that off of the software as well. I know for in situ products, the cable has a different serial number. than the logger. This might be different for these, I can't remember. But always good things just to kind of document. So we're going to switch from this video to the desktop and go over the setup process. Need to add one more part. Totally forgot, we need to connect the data logger to the computer. So the data logger comes where we buy. I just found out these cables are like $300, which is ridiculous. But anyways, there's a cable that connects, and there is a little, if the sun's blocking that or not, there's a little keyhole, I don't know if you can see right here, and on here. So put those together and try to only screw the metal portions of these together. There's these plastic parts that can come unscrewed, and on this cable inside here, the wires can become disconnected pretty easily, and they're easy enough to fix, but you just don't want to have to do that. So once we have that connected, I'm sorry, I can't tell if the sun's really kind of causing problems there. Here, we'll move you over this way. Then all you're going to do is you just plug the USB into your Surface Pro, and we're going to open up the Aqua 4 Plus software, and we will jump over and do that in a second. All right, so we're working on if we're newly deploying one of these Seametrics or Seametrics or whatever it is, data loggers. We've plugged it in and connected it to the computer, but now we need to open the Aqua 4 Plus program. Yeah, for some reason the manufacturer says they prefer you to, awesome. They prefer you to plug the stuff in first and then to connect. Okay, so that screen you just saw, for some reason, if it doesn't actually show up, you can click the refresh. Normally, it just pops up looking like this when you plug things in. So maybe I just had waited too long or whatever else. Now, the first thing we're going to go to is settings, sensor settings. And then there's this little edit button. This is the name of the test. So normally we do something like ND38 MA, and you could put, like, I don't know, if it's an A, that's probably a 20-foot well or something. You could do something like that and call it good as the name. Since I'm testing this at home, I'm going to go bar test home and call it good. Give it a descriptive name, though, so that way when someone plugs into it, even if a test isn't running, they know what well it goes to. And then we're going to set up the units that we want for temperature and pressure. So we want Fahrenheit and PSI. Interesting. We got feet H2O. Let's go feet H2O. Why not? And then here's where the tricky part comes in. So if the data logger is old or hasn't been used in a while, it might have a different date or different time altogether. So we're going to want to set this. And for some reason, you have to kind of set the date, and you might need to jump around years. And these double arrows jump you ahead a year. These little ones jump you ahead a month. And then you come down here, set your date. Today's the 28th. You go select time, and you can go hit OK. And then once you've selected a date and time, then you can go sync with PC. That's not an option before. I don't know why, but just sync with PC. Do what you have to do to get to that point. And then you click save. For pressure, let's go PSI. Let's just go PSI for there. Fahrenheit and PSI. Okay, so now that we've set up that's the data logger itself, now we need to calibrate the logger. So you have a number of options: depth submerged, depth to water, elevation, staff gauge. So we always go with depth to water because we are able to measure down from our RP point down to where the water is. So that's a reference number we can actually measure. So we're going to go depth to water. And then for our pressure here, we want to go feet H2O. Now, this program is weird. It just has this variable called pressure. And for some reason, even though it's reporting a depth in feet or depth to water in feet, it calls it pressure. So that's one of the weird little idiosyncrasies of this program that you kind of got to just accept. So that's where we're going to go feet H2O. This will give us our depth to water. And for our conductivity, we're going to go microsiemens per centimeter. So we're going to click continue. Now, this process is a little weird. Do not enter anything into that box to begin with. The first thing you want to do is click on the measure button. And I kind of think this is a little bit of a black box on how this works. We've talked to the consultants. I've tested this a number of times to figure out what kind of works, and I just don't know why it does what it does. So accept it for what it is and move on with your life. Okay, so once it has an actual average value, and it took 10 readings or something, then we put our reference point in here, and we had 3.82. And so then we click OK. Now when we come over here, we come up with an offset number. This offset should be pretty close, I believe, to what the depth of the well is. So my well is about 17 feet, a little less. And it should have a slope of -1. Now, this isn't necessarily always going to line up that way. It still seems to work out. But generally speaking, most of the time I've done this, this offset's about the depth of the well, around, like how big the well is, generally speaking. The slope should always be -1. If your slope's not -1, start over. Like close everything down, disconnect, and repeat the process. Click apply. Then you can click OK. It now has a new depth reading at 3.82. So we're going to click close now. All right. So we're going to go over to this real-time tab. And I am going to start. And it's going to start grabbing values. And you will see that it is now reading a pressure, which is feet H2O. So this is the depth to water in feet at 3.82 feet, which is what we measured. So that's a good thing. So now we're going to stop this. We're going to come back to the data file. We're now going to go set up logging up here in the top right corner. And we're going to name this something that makes sense. Don't do test file 1 or bot or whatever else. Generally, if you're out in if it's not a test file like I'm doing right now, we might name it something like ND34 underscore, or like 34MA, it's a multi-completion well. And then I generally like to include the date, so that way I know when I originally started taking the data, and when I download it, I've got something useful. If you want, you can sync the computer with PC time. And then what we're going to do is we're going to do a 15 minutes, and always just put 1,000 days here. And I don't know if I'll go above 1,000. I won't do above 1,000. What if I do 9,000? Nope, it sticks with 1,000. Okay, or goes spasticky. So just stick with 1,000 days, which is fine. What's going to happen is you're going to come out here. Someone will come out here and download this data, delete this test, which will delete it out of the memory, and then restart the test and do the recalibration every time. So the only reason we're putting the 1,000 days is if for some reason, I don't know, there's a quarantine and we can't go out into the field for 2 months. Well, at least we're still covered in data collection. So always do 1,000 days. Gives you the buffer. And then you're going to click start. And then you'll see up here it now has a test. It has a play button next to it. It says it's going, and we're good to go. At that point, we have now deployed a data logger, and everything is good to go. You can close the program and move on to the next well. If you have any questions, please let me know.